afternoon from New York City. This is Them Bahamians. But now let's join the program for this afternoon. We have in our studios Reverend Mario Moxey. He is a pastor at Harvest Church in Nassau, Bahamas, and he is visiting New York, and I couldn't give up this chance to have this conversation with him. Let me remind you that the Bahamian American Cultural Society, of which Them Bahamians is the media initiative, is dedicated primarily to advancing the culture of the Bahamas to the rest of the world, because we believe that we do have a message to give to the rest of the world. But through that, our primary mission is to begin to have people talking to each other and listening and understanding each other, because we have a notion or an opinion that because people don't talk to each other, converse with each other, probably is a better word, and listen to each other and try to understand their cultural differences, is the reason why there are so much problems in the world. And the better we break down those problem barriers, which I call the barriers to peace, I think we will at least make an effort to bring civility and a better world. Having said that, Reverend Moxey, I know that you are a reverend, ordained minister of the gospel, and a pastor of a church in the Bahamas. Could you tell us about your spiritual work?
Thank you, Brother Edgecombe, for first of all allowing us to be here on the program with you. Bahamas Harvest Church was started this year. We celebrate 18 years of ministry. So I like to tell people it took us 18 years to get here. The journey of Bahamas Harvest Church is one of tremendous curves and deep bends and ups and downs. But the great thing is, I believe, because we've been able to navigate and do as God has instructed us to do, we've come to a place where the church has grown in its influence, and we're able to impact so many lives. When we got started back in 1998, it was just my wife and my children. We just returned home from World Harvest Bible College in Columbus, Ohio, where we experienced all four climates. We had 4 seasons. When we weren't accustomed to that, we lived in the Bahamas all our lives, and so we were accustomed to just the tropical weather.
Right, I can relate to that. Both of us went to college in the Midwest.
Yeah,
I went to Minnesota,
and you live in New York. Yeah. Actually, I was considering Minnesota at one point in time for Bible college.
Yes.
Northwestern in Minnesota.
Okay.
But you live in New York, so you're very well familiar with the 4 seasons.
Yes, I am.
And but returning home from Columbus, Ohio, we knew that God had called us to start a local church, and the way our church looks today is completely different than where we started back in 1998, and it's interesting because the message that we preach is very sacred. There is no compromise in the message. Right today and right back then is still right. Wrong is still wrong. The Word of God has no error in it, and it is infallible. But nonetheless, the methodologies have changed. And over the years, we find ourselves changing our method based on the people that we're called to reach.
And let me Recently I understand that you are. Excuse me if we talk about religions instead of spirituality, But I understand that you are, if you can classify something, and people like to classify things, you are non-denominational.
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 Yeah.
Because when I first heard of the Harvest Baptist Church, I heard of the Harvest Baptist Church.
Okay.
So, but Baptist is not a part of your nomenclature of your church, is it?
No.
Okay.
The name of our church is Bahamas Harvest Church.
Bahamas Harvest Church, and
Right.
there's something called the Harvest Church here in New York.
I believe so. Yeah.
I know so, and so I wanted to ask you why aren't you let me ask you, why aren't you associated with the Baptists? Zion, I know there's a Zion Baptist, there's Bethel Baptist, there is the Mother Zion,
Yeah.
Mother Zion Baptist Church, or the African Methodist Baptist Church, and of course it's the Catholic and the Anglicans in the Bahamas, and the Gospel Hall, and but you are not. You can't pin you down to any one of those things.
I like to say that I embrace all of those, and here's the reason why.
Okay.
I grew up in an Anglican church, so all of my life I attended an Anglican church as a little boy, participating as a...
Which is the Episcopalian church for our American friends.
Episcopalian, correct. And so I served on the altar, very active in the church, Holy Trinity Anglican Church in Stapleton Gardens in Nassau, Bahamas. And great leadership with Ken and Eddie and Boleg at the time, and grew up there with a fire in my belly.
Okay.
At the same time, I also grew up at John Memorial Primary School and Prince William High School, which is a Baptist school. So I went to church on the weekends as an Anglican and went to school during the week as a Baptist. So I have it on both sides. Because of my spiritual growth, I knew that I needed to take my spiritual development to another level. I did not want to attend the Anglican college. I didn't see that as a path in my life, and ended up going to another Bible college. As a matter of fact, on my way to Bible college, one of the statements that I made, and of course you have to understand that my religious world was the Anglican Church. So the statement that I made was, I know I didn't want to be a priest. So I said, I don't know what I'm going to do when I graduate from Bible college, but I know I'm not going to be a pastor.
But you wanted to serve the Lord.
I just wanted to serve the Lord. And it goes to show how little we do know about God's plans for our lives. So I went there not knowing that I was not going to be a pastor. And by the time I had completed Bible college, that was the only thing in the world that I wanted to do. And so we came home and started the church. I don't say that Bahamas Harvest Church excludes itself from other denominations. I think we include ourselves with other denominations. We are still part of a very strong religious fabric in the Bahamas. And just recently, for example, through the Bahamas Christian Council, we banded together and stopped the expansion of gambling in our country. So there is brotherhood, there is ecumenical resolve in the body of Christ in the Bahamas, where we still come together and we function as though we're one denomination under one umbrella. So it is not to be exclusive. It is rather to include others.
That's beautiful. It's for the spiritual development of people, regardless of denomination or the established denominational nomenclature of churches. How large are your congregation now? Are you?
We're very, in the Bahamas, we're considered a very large congregation. On the weekends, we have 4 worship experiences or 4 church services. We actually get started on Saturday night. We attempted several years ago to try and have 4 services on a Sunday morning, but that didn't work out too well for us because of the time restraints that we experienced. And so we have evolved now to one on Saturday night at 7 p.m. and three on Sunday morning at 7 a.m., 9 a.m., and 11 a.m.
Okay.
So the church is a youthful church, but it's a very growing church, and I foresee us continuing to grow in the future.
Okay. Are you went into any socio-economic or educational activities for your congregation and others?
From a social perspective, we're very, very socially minded. At every Christmas, for example, and this is just one of the things that we do, we allow the gospel to take on human form, in the sense of we put a face on Jesus, we put hands on Jesus, we put feet on Jesus. We empower our congregation to go out into the community and distribute food items. We purchase all the items. This is probably about a $40,000 project that we do every year. We purchase all the grocery items. We somehow stage it at the church, a campus, where our congregation is able to come and pick up grocery bags, and they go out into their community, whether it's their co-workers, whether it's neighbors, whether it's family members or friends, and they distribute all of this food. And we usually have such a profound time during this particular exercise, because it's a way of us giving back to the community. And people especially feel connected to that sort of thing, where they know that here's a church that's part of the community. Other things we've done in the community would have been to build a house for a family that needed a house. We have an arm of our church called Project Hope. Project Hope is what we call the National Emergency Relief Arm of Bahamas Harvest Church, where anytime there is a natural disaster in the Bahamas, we respond almost immediately. So during two very devastating hurricanes in the Bahamas, Jane and Francis, we were able to distribute food to Freeport, 40-foot containers of water. And those two 40-foot containers, that was the first delivery that we made. It was just water. And you would think that something as basic as water would be satisfied almost immediately. And it was not. There was such a tremendous need for the residents in Freeport, and I remember that day so clearly. I think out of all the relief that we've done, that one kind of had a really profound impact in my life, because it was such a great need, and the water distribution took place in probably less than 2 hours. That tells you the size of the need, that there was a number of persons that actually came out to get the relief.
So you responded to that need. You must have a large core of volunteers and dedicated. And how do you get this? Water. You got to buy it. You have to buy it, or through giving.
Through giving. Our congregation, whenever we like to say it this way: if God can get it through you, He can get it to you. And we've seen where our congregation respond to need almost immediately, because they know that anytime there's a disaster, today it's someone else, but tomorrow it could be them. And we all need to be in that position where we feel as though someone is going to be there for us. And it's great to know that there's a church that is able to respond. In one hurricane disaster we responded to in Abaco, we went to Abaco, and it was just kind of a fact-finding trip. We didn't actually have anything to give on this one particular trip. We came back later with food and water supplies. But the reason why I like to tell this story is because we spoke with a pastor. He took us to his church, and he showed us the devastation. It was the entire foundation just was ripped from underneath the church. He lives right on the coast. And one of the things he said to us is, he says, if y'all had come here to Abaco and didn't do anything but just talk to me, you would have ministered to my need more than anything else. It's just the fact that you go out to see about people. And that's what I love to encourage others. anytime you hear something happen to a friend or to a family member or to a neighbor, pick up the phone, give them a call, see about them, check on them. You know, let them know that you're thinking about them and you're there, you're praying for them, and that goes such a long way. You don't always have to have something tangible to give. It's the intangible things that sometimes value so much more.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned Abaco, which for our audience who do not know much about the Bahamas is a series of islands, about just say 3,000 islands, or but let us for the sake of clarity, there are about 17 islands that are developed or in different stages of that development.
They're inhabited,
Right. So, so since you mentioned Abaco, I wanted to ask you, what about the other? I mean, you are in New Providence, where Nassau, the capital of the Bahamas, is. And of course, there is Freeport, which is on Grand Bahama, and Freeport is the second city. Okay. Have you expanded to any of the other 15 or 16 islands?
It's a great question, and it's a question that we're constantly having conversations about.
Okay.
We do plan to expand onto other family islands eventually. We've responded in times of disaster to, I wouldn't say all of them, but any of them in recent years that have had a disaster. I think the last family islands that we were on would have been either Cat Island or Acklands or Crooked Island. One of those would have been the last ones that we would have responded to in terms of disaster relief. Our plans are to expand and to carry this gospel message of Jesus Christ to all of the Bahamas. So,
very good. I saw in your resume, and I saw that you said your church uses unconventional and modern technology to spread the message.
Yeah.
Could you explain that aspect?
Sure. A great example is what I'm wearing right now.
Okay.
This is what I would usually wear on a Sunday morning. This is part of us reaching our community. Jane's and the shirt is the order of the day at Bahamas Harvest Church.
I see.
And so one of the things that we do is we take this message that sometimes religion have the perfect way of taking something simple and making it complex and complicated. So we take something that's complex and complicated and we make it simple. So we use technology to help with that as part of the teaching tool. We have these huge iMic screens, and all of our services are recorded, and they're streamed live on the internet. Our website is www.bahamasharvestchurch.org, and so you can stream, watch us live, or you can watch a recorded message free of charge. So that resonates with the persons that we're actually reaching. We use intelligent lighting. We use modern music. Anything that you would imagine having the convenience of the I guess the community and some of the things that people would normally anticipate or expect to see if they would go out into a modern place. They would have all of these amenities at our church. For example, we have a coffee shop at our church. Okay. We have a cafeteria. So usually when persons come in, and you talked about the volunteers, we have several hundred volunteers that work every weekend in order to execute a worship experience.
That's
so
great.
They're fed. through the cafeteria, the coffee house. People can come in and grab something to eat, grab something to drink, and have an extended conversation. And you know, Bahamians, we love to talk, we love the fellowship. Our services are 90 minutes, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be at church at 90 minutes. You're there 90 minutes in a service, but you end up at our campus for about 2 to 3 hours because the remainder of the time is just spent talking.
Right.
And that's a very key part of it. It's a very key.
I mean, when I get to Nassau, I have to find you. For my sake and for the Bahamian Americans who go back and forth and have families in Nassau, or for the tourists who visit our great beaches and hotels in the Bahamas. Where in Nassau are you located?
We're
in New Providence.
In New Providence, New Providence is 21 by 7 miles, 21 at its longest distance. So nothing is too far in New Providence.
Right.
We're on the eastern end of the island.
The eastern end.
Yeah. So, but interestingly enough, we have a number.
You used to say out east. You
out east.
You out east.
We out east. Exactly.
Right.
So we have a number of tourists that would actually.
You're beyond Fox Hill?
We're right beyond Fox Hill Road.
Right. Oh, beyond Fox Hill going east.
Yeah. So we way out east. But we have a number of tourists that look us up online, that browse and surf the internet for a church and come across Bahamas Harvest Church.
Okay.
And make arrangements to come and visit us.
Or non-Bahamians and friends of the Bahamas who are listening, Fox Hill is a special town in New Providence that's associated with slavery, and it's classified as a mecca of slavery, and it retains some of the if you want to see some of the retention of the slave customs, it's in Fox Hill. So every around August the 1st, around August the 1st, we always celebrated the emancipation from slavery, which was, and I want to tell Americans, which was before the American was emancipated from slavery, so every year we have what we call Fox Hill Day, in which we commemorate our ancestors, slaves' ancestry, and of course we also celebrate our advancement from being slaves to being a modern society and entrepreneurs and like you, Moxey, bringing the gospel to a diversified group of people, no matter what race or anything.
Color or creed.
We do that. Your joy, a little bit. How did you get there? How did you? How did you get into being a minister? I know you touched on it, but as a little boy, and what? How did you grow up?
The older you become, the more you don't know. So
okay,
and I say that to say this.
I say the same thing. The more you know you don't know.
I conducted an exercise in talking to some of the heads of denominations back home, of the churches, and one of them was the head of the Church of God, overseer John Hilms, and at the end of our meeting, he said to me, he says, "Well, how's your dad doing?" And I said, "He's doing good." He said, "Well, your dad used to be part of us." And I said, "Yeah, I know he used to be part of the Church of God until he backslid and got into politics." And I laughed, and he didn't laugh with me. And so he said, "What do you mean he backslid and went into politics?" I said, "Yeah, isn't that what happened?" He says, "No." He says, "You don't know the story?" I said, "No, I don't know the story." Well, my father is Edmund Moxey, and he said he was the National Youth Director for the Church of God. and he was on his way to become the National General Overseer eventually. And this was all news to me. I didn't even realize that my father was the National Youth Director. But through an incident that happened where he directed and wrote a play, that play was played during the convention, and he was reprimanded because there was a scene in the play where they depicted a young man drinking alcohol, and so he was rebuked publicly, and that ended his time with the Church of God, and he left, and he, along with a few of his friends, and went into politics. And I went home to my father, and I said to him, I said, you know, I had this conversation, and I didn't know that you were the National Youth Director, and also that you were on your way to become the General Overseer.
Right.
And I told him what John Helms had said to me. He says, you know, he said that you were before your time. And my father said, you know, Mario, I never understood that statement. I went into the church and they said I was before my time. I went into politics and they said I was before my time.
Yes.
So I saw my father broken probably for the first time in my life.
Right.
But then the thought occurred to me that I'm now a pastor of a non-denominational church. If my father had stayed on the track that he had stayed on, I probably would have been a pastor in the Church of God.
Yes.
And I'm saying all that to say this. I think in my family heritage there is this deep root calling that God has on my family, that my father was along this track of becoming a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. His path took another route into politics, and that calling, that mantle fell upon me. And so I ended up becoming a pastor. I ended up sensing that calling and that divine summoning to become a minister.
Very nice. Very nice.
You know, one of the things, and I say that with great humility, because sometimes we just don't know. I don't know why is it that I ended up being involved in church to the extent that I was involved, and why is it that taste to do things for God existed in me, and I believe that came from my father. So a lot of things, like I said before, the older you become, the more you really don't know.
Right.
And so I just surrendered to the fact that God has called me and apprehended me to be who I am. And I am thankful and grateful for my lot in life.
Right.
You know, I look back and I can see that, you know, I was heading along that track of politics as well.
Right.
And not that I think politics and politicians, it's a noble career. I just believe that there's none more noble than being a pastor.
Right. But and congratulations to you, Reverend Moxey. You responded to that call. But one of the reasons I ask you about the childhood is because we emphasize culture, and what we sometimes pick up among Bahamian Americans, and also when I listen to what's happening in Nassau, is that the people, younger folks, does not have much knowledge about where they came from,
Right.
and how their parents, even grandparents, have had to struggle to bring them to where they are today, and also and what I pick up also is that there are values that were, and we'll get into that a little later, values that were taught in earlier years that are not being emphasized today. And that's why, like for instance, I mean, I've been in America for over 40 years now, and my children, I mean, I have to tell them where I came from and tell them about my grandparents, my parents, and my parents. For all practical purpose, they're Americans. They grew up in America. They take them to the Bahamas as kids, and now they're pretty grown. They go there, but I find it is important, and the older I get, I realize that is an important thing for them to know, so that either as a comparison, or to better themselves, or to reach higher, and of course, in America and here we feel as though each generation should be better, and I wouldn't get into what better means, but better than it's socioeconomically. Let me just say, better than the generation that was before it.
And but that's what we would want for all of our children. The reason why I think for me as an individual, I know who I am. My identity was given to me by my heritage. So I can trace my identity based on the roots, based on my family, based on the value system, that they would have imparted to me. I grew up in a very culturally rich family, so that added the value of what it means to be Bahamian. I've participated in a number of Bahamian productions. And one of them that stand out is This Wee Things, So I kind of know who I am as far as the Bahamian is concerned. When we look at our youth today, they don't know what it means to be Bahamian. You spoke just briefly about the heritage and the fact that our parents fought for what it means for our sovereignty. They fought for national pride. When you look at our youth today, their parents didn't fight for national pride. Their parents were fighting for food on the table. So a lot of them, the values that shape their mentality today has to do with what's in it for me. What am I going to get? How am I going to be fed? How am I going to have roof over my head? And so with that comes a certain level of desperation, and we see this desperation being acted out every day, and not with everyone, but with most Bahamians, we see this desperation being acted out where it's all about me. It's what am I going to get? And it's not about national pride. It's not about looking at the bigger picture of this is our Bahamas and we need to protect this Bahamas. No, it's all about, I need to make sure that I get my things. And as long as I can get my things, as long as I can get stuff for me, then everything is fine.
So do you think, or do you? I mean, there is an opinion, and do you share that opinion that there seems to be an erosion of Christian values, or what I call humanism, human values, civility, respect for life, respect for one another, that in the younger generation there seems to be an erosion of some of those stable virtues and values. What do you want to relate to that? Is that so? But one thing I always try to strike a balance to say, look, I don't want to be too hard on the younger generations, because they have something that probably we didn't have. They do have, and they do have something, and they have a great deal, and not only just something. I think that they have a great deal to offer, but it has to be harnessed. And the trick is how to harness it. And what do you want to harness that they have? But back to the question, do you think that something has a bit eroded, though?
There has been an erosion, and that's what I was drawing my attention to. The reality of it is it can be harnessed, and this is why you and I have our work cut out for us, because we cannot let go of the wheel. We have to be very much involved in the process of getting involved with their lives. The work that I do as a pastor in terms of being able to instill values in families is very, very important. But obviously the church by itself cannot do it all. We need sustained programs of persons like yourself and others that care enough about our culture, the Bahamas, that's prepared to get in the midst of that and establish community programs. We used to have a program called Jesus in the Park. We'll go into the park, set up, and have a wonderful event, and then after the event we go back home. And one Saturday we were doing that, and in the midst of it, God kind of grabbed my attention and says, stop what you're doing and look around you. And as I looked around, these families that we were just ministering to, they were going back into their community, going back to their various homes. And God says, you need to do more than just going in and having a program on a Saturday and leaving. You need to get in there and stay in there, hang out, find some way that we can establish, whether it's a physical location, someplace in there that we can establish a hub that we can minister to these individuals on an ongoing basis. That's the response, not just for the church, but for every concerned Bahamian. That is we're just being torn apart of the fact that our values are slipping away and this younger generation don't have them. They're not going to teach themselves the values. Values have to be imparted. They have to be taught from someone else. But we at the same time, we can't sit back and say, well, something has to be done. We have to get in there and do it. Yeah. And so as a local church, then...
Well said.
As a local church that goes into this mindset of being extremely missional and getting into these communities and establishing these works in the communities, it creates a great opportunity for partnership for those Bahamians that have means and have the resources, whether it's financial resources or whether it's human resources of know-how and prepared to roll up their sleeves and invest 2 hours a week in a community program like that, because it's going to take all of us. It's not just one or two of us. All of us have to get involved and say, you know what, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to volunteer 2 or 3 hours of my time every week, and I will teach them literature.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
and when we talk about erosion of values, well, we say the erosion of values, but you were there. I was there.
Yeah.
You know, wait a minute. You talk about them, you talk about you.
Exactly.
So you know, and I talked. I mean, we have similar issues in New York as you have in the Bahamas and throughout the United States, the modern society, and I always say. Well, you talk about the younger generation and the young folks. I said, but where were us? I said, wait a minute. And I tell you what I said, where did we go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm serious about that. And I think you got to seriously consider that. Where did we go wrong?
Yeah.
And so we are all in this together, and you can't just consider one aspect and not consider as though we are different and we are apart from it and we had nothing to do with it, and
that's not the case.
That we're in this together.
You know, one of the things as time progresses and we become more progressive in our thinking, Bahamians are now at the place where we're earning a really great income. That wasn't always the case. I think there was a time where we focused heavily on creating wealth, and now that the wealth is being created, I think we need to move on to the next phase, and that is, okay, I've created this wealth. Now, what can I do with this? What can I do with the fact that I'm successful? You know, I've earned my degree. I have a degree in whatever your degree may be in, whatever science or discipline it is. How can I now take that knowledge that I have and impart it? How can I take this wealth and give it in a way that I'm now able to help others and bring others up with me? I heard a story of some Westerners. They went into Africa and they, you know, they had big ideas and all the other stuff, and they had these chocolate bars, and the children had loved the chocolate bars. So they told a group of children, they said, we'll give the winner a chocolate bar, whoever comes first in this race. And when the children heard that, they all grabbed their hands together and they ran together and they finished the race together. And of course, these Westerners were shocked. So they asked the little girl, says, well, why did you do that? And here's her response. She says, how can I be happy if I have a chocolate bar and my brothers and sisters don't have any?
What a message.
What a message.
What a message.
And I think that's the message for us, in that we're at the place now where we need to realize that what we have is not just for us, it's for others. I need to be able to take the knowledge and the wisdom and all these years of experience and impart it and bring others along with me. Help them to see the light that I've seen. And that's the next alliteration for us as Bahamians. It's not good enough for us to now build our homes and have our fancy security bars and we're cut away from the rest of society and we're safe and we're doing well. We need to figure out how to create those inroads and build those bridges back into our communities.
We need to have a national conversation.
Yeah.
We need to have I mean, when I say we, I'm identifying with me. I'm still identifying. We need.
But your influence is also very important, because from this perspective, in the Bahamian American Association that is here in New York, the things that you guys are able to do to assist the Bahamas is also very important as well. So you sit from a very influential chair.
well, I hope so. If someone would listen, and you touched on a question while I was thinking about having this interview with you, or conversation with you, of a question I had to ask you, is that there is, well, as an economic and a socio-economic opinion, that the gap between the haves and the have-not in the Bahamas is widening.
Yeah,
is widening, and that was so. I mean, I don't know if you're old enough to remember that was wide when before independence.
Yes. That was before my time.
Probably wider than it is now, but if it keeps on widening, we'll probably get there if you don't watch it. Where and I don't want to make this racial, but where the white majority, who were the rulers of the country at the time, and the black minorities who were subservient, the gap was of income. I mean, from a few rich to the many poor. Mm-hmm. Have you heard that? Is there any truth to that? Did that ever rise up in the conversations in the Bahamas? And what about that?
It is a conversation that is being had where this middle class is eroding, and there is some concern there. I don't think it's become a prominent fixture.
A few years ago, we were talking about we were building a strong middle class. Remember that?
Right. No, but
that's
not
that long ago. That's like 10, 15 years ago. We were proud of the middle class that we were building.
We also have this sluggish economy that we're facing right now.
Yes.
That is really dishing out a lot of despair and hopelessness.
True.
And it's because of the sluggishness in the economy that this conversation is now surfacing again in terms of the erosion of a middle class. Mm-hmm. It is hopeful that as the economy picks up in the next, and you know, we're 2013. We're looking possibly in the next 2 years in the Bahamas for this sluggishness, this tide to stem, and we're able to kind of climb out of this. And what happens over the next 2 years is going to be very pivotal. We can either slip further or we can maintain. Of course, the optimist perspective is for us just to maintain. The pessimist is thinking that this may slip even further than we are right now. Nonetheless, we must be able to, as a people, begin to monitor and gauge this very, very intentionally, I suspect that we will climb out of the sluggish economy. I suspect that we'll have a strengthened middle class again. But the other factor that we're not talking about that really contributes to this is crime. We're dealing with crime issues today that 10 years ago we didn't have to face these. And so the concern now is for those that are willing to assist and help and get out of their fortress and go and build bridges, is it safe? Yes. So that's the other side of the coin.
The emergence of crime and irresponsible behavior is one of the effects of the widening of the gap of income. But it is a reality.
It is a reality, and like I said, it is something that over the next 2 years, hopefully as the economy begins to build up, that we'll see a lot of that diminishing as more and more Bahamians are able to gain employment again.
Well, it brings. I mean, in your position, you've seen the human frailties of man.
Yes.
No matter what color he is, or no matter where he comes from, there are certain basic things that, given the circumstances, we all are sucked into. Unfortunately.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes. No matter what color you are, and you have to. I mean, not you, but I know you deal with that. You have to deal with that as a pastor, and I have to deal with that in whatever I do. Let me ask you: Do you have a school attached to your?
No, we don't have a school as yet. It is something that we have on the drawing board, and hopefully in the next few years we'll be able to begin the process of making that dream a reality. The type of school that we want to charter is going to be quite unique. It's going to be different than the schools that you see in the Bahamas today. So over the next few years, we're looking at developing a new kind of educational system.
I wanted to bring that up because you're aware of the recent scores that came out from, and I was shocked, of the secondary school scores, national scores that came out, how they are very poor. I mean, the Minister for Education was very unhappy at the scores that came out, and well, the same thing in this country too. I mean, the challenge of educating kids to function in the workplace and to give themselves some happiness.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna take a break at this particular point of having the conversation with you, because I do want to make a few announcements to the Bahamian American community and to our friends of the Bahamas. I want to make a special announcement that we do have two important individuals who have joined our diplomatic corps in New York. The first is the Honorable Forrester Carroll, who has been appointed as Consul General to the New York and the Pennsylvania area and the Massachusetts area. He is the Consul General. And His Excellency Eugene Nuri, who is now our permanent representative to the United Nations. They are, if you wish, they are important to the native Bahamians and to visiting Bahamians here, because they ensure that we are safe. We are safe, and ensure that visitors who are traveling to the Bahamas get the appropriate documents that they need in order to enter the Bahamas and to return. So I just wanted to say that to reach them and to reach the consulate office, you should call 212-421-6420. You can reach them at that office, at that number again, 212-421-6420. We have been talking for nearly an hour now with Reverend Mario Moxey of the Harvest Church in the Bahamas, and he has been telling me about wonderful work that he is doing in the community, and not only the community in the island of New Providence and Nassau, but also in the family islands. And it's very inspiring. And besides, we have been talking about general life and uplifting the people in the Bahamas. But we know now that it is not only Reverend Mario, but he has a family, a very strong family behind him. And with him in the studio now, we have brought in his wife, who also helps him and is a co-pastor with him in the Harvest Church ministry to the people of the Bahamas. And of course, their lovely daughter here, who is one of two other children. Am I correct?
Correct.
Two other
Correct.
children. You have three children, and and congratulations.
Well, thank you for having us.
Congratulations to you. And would you like to say something about the joy and the pleasure you have in assisting and co-sponsoring, co-partnering this message of Jesus Christ and hope to the people of the Bahamas?
I think for myself, I think I know one of our main goal is life change. And for me, my heart and my desire has always been children's ministry in our youth. And we have some exciting programs that we have going on in regards to our youth and bringing life change. You know, it's one thing to preach the gospel of Christ and bringing them to God, which is our ultimate goal, but also just so that they can live a leveled life, and so just bringing them and exposing them to different things, and just allowing them to know that it's more than just the Bahamas. The world is bigger than just Nassau, and so it's a pleasure working along with my husband in the ministry.
Very good, very good. And I certainly encourage you, and I encourage the Bahamians who are listening in the Bahamas and in the New York area to visit your church when you go to the Bahamas, and the Bahamians down there to support your church and to support the good work that you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
In the Bahamas.
Well, we like to tell people, you don't have to wait till you come to the Bahamas to experience Bahamas Harvest Church. Just join us online.
Okay.
www.bahamasharvestchurch.org.
Could you repeat that again?
www.bahamasharvestchurch.org.
Okay. You hear that? Okay. So do that, and let us join his ministry and his good works to the people of the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Let me say is that one thing that the Dem Bahamians and the Bahamian American Cultural Society, that's our organization, we try to keep the bridge alive between the Bahamas and New York area and the United States. And would you like to say a word of encouraging the Bahamians, the Bahamian Americans in New York, to visit the Bahamas, use the Bahamas, and I'm not talking about tourism now, but use the Bahamas as a place to come to get for your daughters and sons to get married.
That's right. That's right.
and
That's
to
right.
visit and to visit the Bahamas and what I guess they probably will call heritage tourism.
Yeah.
To visit the spots of their ancestors.
That's right.
And to learn more about their background so that they can teach their children who were born in the United States and have not experienced it, but to join the experience. Could you tell them?
Sure. Sometimes we think that we're limited because of what we have or what we don't have. And oftentimes it just requires us to kind of think outside of the box. There was a time when I think globally people were concerned about what you call brain drain, where you have all the talented people that will leave one country and migrate to another country, impoverishing that country that they came from because they took with them the wealth of their knowledge. That's not a major concern today, simply because those Bahamians that are in places like New York and other parts of the world, have the opportunity to come home, not necessarily to return home to live, but to come home and to make a valuable contribution through their experiences and knowledge and know-how. They can partner along with others who are presently there doing some of the things that they desire to see done in the Bahamas, and just kind of, if you can take, and as you say, we're not talking about tourism, we're talking about contribution. So if you plan 2 weeks vacation and decide to spend 1 week assisting a church in a vacation Bible school, or assisting some type of community outreach or program, civic program, in executing one of their programs, then that's one way of giving back. That's one way of going home and saying, I can tangibly contribute, spend some hours doing this. And just that connection alone is invaluable to those who are in the Bahamas and then those who are outside.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the Moxey family.
Thank you.
For joining us here this afternoon, and I want to thank you for listening to us, and get back to us. But if you get back to us, then we want to grow. We want to be better. So have a pleasant afternoon.